So in this video, we're going to talk about the structural organization of the human body, just generally. Now, we know the human body is very organized. I mean, we have an entire universe of cells and tissues and organ systems within us. But we can look at the body in terms of different levels. So we can look at the human body at its chemical level. You know, what are the atoms or the molecules and organelles that make up a human body? We can also study the human body at the cellular level. And this involves looking at basically single cells and the structures and functions of those cells. But we can also understand what happens when cells come together and they form what we call tissues. Well, tissues are essentially groups of similar cells that perform a common goal or function. And this can also be a way to study human anatomy in terms of the tissues that make up a body. Or, what happens when tissues come together to form an organ? So we know that organs contain two or more types of tissues. An example of an organ could be like bone or even skin. Your heart's an organ as well. And although these are individual organs, these organs can be a part of a larger system, which we call an organ system. So organ systems are those which we've defined as organs that work closely together towards some sort of common goal or function. An example of an organ system could be like your cardiovascular system, which includes an organ, your heart, and other organs like your blood vessels. And together they make the cardiovascular system, which are multiple organs working together. Now, your body's made of 11 different organ systems that all come together to make an organism. And the organism is when all your systems combine to make the whole organism. So we can work our way back down towards the chemical level, and really study human anatomy in terms of its chemistry, or even work our way up and talk about the organism. Now, it turns out that this is actually the structure of the chapters in our textbook. So we're going to study the chemical level first. So chapter 2 is all about atoms and molecules. Chapter 3, we'll talk about organelles and cells. And then in chapter 4, we'll talk about tissues. And thereafter, we'll talk about all the organs and organ systems of the body to give you a better understanding of the entire organism, which is the human body. Now, just to summarize this, we can see that the chemical level is where we have atoms and molecules that can come together to make organelles. And organelles are the tiny little organs you can find within cells. And these organelles have actually specific functions to maintain the structure and the functions of the cell itself. Now, the cellular level is a way to study human anatomy in terms of individual cells, smooth muscle cells or nerve cells, or bone cells. What's the structure and the function of these cells? Well, it relates to the organelles and their molecules and their atoms, so we can work our way down as well. Now, even though our body's made of cells, they're not just loosely organized. They're actually very highly organized into specific tissues. So a tissue is where you have lots of similar cells together in a local area that serves some sort of common goal or function. So the example this is showing is basically with smooth muscle cells, how these cells can work together to help, regulate the diameter of an organ, like your blood vessels. So although smooth muscle tissue is a type of tissue, you're going to find this within a specific organ like a blood vessel. So this blood vessel, it's an organ because it consists of more than two tissue types, and the smooth muscle within the wall of this blood vessel helps to regulate the diameter and therefore regulate things like blood pressure and blood flow. But this is considered an organ because it's made up of multiple tissue types. Now, this blood vessel is part of a greater system, which is the organ system of your cardiovascular system, which is basically thousands of miles of blood vessels that are all interlinked, and they eventually connect with the heart, which is another organ that's part of your cardiovascular system. So all this together, your heart and blood vessels, make this organ system, which is comprised of lots of separate organs like blood vessels or your heart. Now, this is just one organ system. We actually have 11 organ systems in the body, which all together make the organism.